It's 11 o'clock on Thursday, which means it's our Facebook Live time. And today we're going to be talking about choking. So I have my trusted mannequins with me today. That's my water. And as I mentioned kind of in the title of this video, this is single-handedly the most requested session that I have done in my past, 14, 15 years as a trainer. And I think it's because quite a lot of our training is delivered to paediatric settings, so quite a lot of family centres, quite a lot of nurseries and preschools, etc. And also as the children get older in school, people want to know what to do in the event of a choke. And that's because it's immediate. It doesn't need any illness, there doesn't have to be any build up to this. It just happens if a child or a person gets something lodged in their airway. So if you remember from last week, we were looking at danger response airway breathing and how that's what we classify as something called the primary survey. Single-handedly the most important thing for you to remember, danger response airway breathing. Choking comes under airway problems, which means that if the airway becomes compromised, then the person cannot breathe. That then becomes a problem for brain function. And ultimately people do die if they choke. So today I'm going to be discussing with you how to recognise choking and also how to treat it. So I got asked by, it's actually a programme called Digital Babies years ago, and it was produced by ITN, but also we got to do some filming on this. So there are films available that I've done currently on NHS Choices. If you go to the NHS Choices website and put in what to do for my baby's choking, then you'll see a video pretty much the same as one I'm going to be doing now, but a little bit posher. And if you wanted to also find out, if you go to our website, www.abclifesupport.co.uk, go to the media centre and you'll see a video that I did years ago at the same time on how to recognise the difference between choking and gagging, and that was for people who had babies, were looking to wean them, and how to recognise the difference. So I'll touch base on that today, but just to let you know, there are some videos that I've done available out there in the wider world. All right, so I'm going to start from the very beginning, which is from baby age, and utilising these resources that I had years ago. I've worked with promoting the Child Accident Prevention Trust work over the years because they're an amazing organisation, and as an accident is defined as something that's preventable, they're doing a lot of work with public health to try and promote what we can do in our homes to keep our children safe. It's June is Child Accident Prevention Week, Child Safety Week, and I'll be putting out some information from those that company as we get close to that time. So just kind of want to bring that a little bit closer to you there. All right, so I can choke on small things I pick up. And this kind of happens when your babies start to move around, all right? So I'm just going to kind of read from back. So I'm here, but I'm just going to give you some information here. It says, why might a baby choke? And it's because babies explore things with their mouth. They automatically put something in their mouth, regardless of what it is. So when they're moving around at the age of around 4, 5, 6 months crawling, they will find things and put them in their mouths. And some of the things are things like coins, buttons, button batteries are the most common causes of choking. And they can get hold of small things from other children's toys as well. So just be careful. Also handbags. If you've got your handbags open, and if your handbag is anything like mine, it is full of stuff at the bottom of it. So just be aware of things like that they can get hold of. So the idea, I suppose, is to get into the habit, if you are parents of a very young baby, is to get rid of those things the minute you come in. So, for example, I bought my husband like a leather container thing that he puts his keys and change in. So one of those maybe in the hall, so you can get rid of stuff like that when you come in the house. Make sure that you educate older children about not putting things near the baby's mouth, because that's really important as well. And make sure that your handbags are out of reach. Other ways that a baby might choke, which is quite useful information for you. Being propped up by their milk. So sometimes, you know, people have been known to kind of help with the feeding process by putting a bottle on a cushion, for example, in the baby's mouth. If they can't move, then it could cause a choke. Foods that are unsuitable for their development stage. So this is where you might have heard about grapes. It's almost as if grapes are the only food on the whole planet that can cause a baby to choke, because that's all I hear about. What about grapes? Do we cut them up into 2? Do we cut them in half or 4s? What about cherry tomatoes or olives or something like that? And I know probably people are going, olives, but I always think, you know, feed your baby everything, you know, when they're weaning, because it's interesting. They might like the things that you don't. interesting enough. So just be aware that boiled sweets, you know, chocolate eggs, I know when Easter came about, there was a lot of information going around about the mini eggs. So being aware of those. And whole grapes and orange segments is also another one that could cause a problem. So just cut them up. And being fed by older brothers and sisters. I remember Sebastian trying to feed his sister a number of times, but it's education, all right? Not necessarily telling them off, but just explaining why they can't do those things. So that's a little bit of information about why babies might choke at that age. I'll go into a little bit more detail on the choking and gagging video that talks about the baby's gag reflex being a lot further forward in the throat than when they grow up. So further on in their development, that gag reflex recedes further down into the throat, which means that you might not be seeing as much gag reflex in your older children, because it has kind of, well, they should have learned how to eat by then, we say, scoffing in their faces. So yeah, how do we recognise a choke? So first of all, it's really important to understand that if it is a real choke, as in this is an airway blockage, you will not hear it. You won't hear any signs of it. And whenever I am on delivering a session, I always tell people, right, you know, you're going to be the guy or the person who's choking, and automatically they go, that is not choking, dude. That is you getting something stuck down the wrong hole in your body trying to get rid of it, all right? So partial choking is when a person's coughing and spluttering. Leave them to it. I know that sounds a bit weird. Don't leave them, obviously, but just stand by them and encourage them to cough, because actually that coughing and spluttering is them doing what they're naturally supposed to do to try and get rid of this threat to their airway. We need to intervene immediately if we do not hear any sound, but you can recognise it in the face. So a few things that you can check to see whether or not they are choking is no coughing, no spluttering, no sound whatsoever, and a face on them in terms of might be piercing eyes, they might have eyes bulging, their hands might be out, they might kind of be shaking a little bit, there might be a change in colour, and if it's prolonged, then they might have a bit of a clear white area around the mouth. That's what we call cyanosis, which is not a good sign. That means that they're actually craving oxygen, okay? So these are the signs to look out for. And what we do with a baby is recognise that they're choking, okay? But don't get worried if you're weaning and the baby goes, all right, just kind of stand back and watch. A couple of seconds, they should be absolutely fine. If they don't, and any of those signs and symptoms I discussed a minute ago come about, then this is what you do. You take the baby out of the high chair, grip underneath the chin, okay, and tilt the baby downwards. I'm just going to turn now so you can see the shape of the body against mine. Now I put my hand against my lap and I put the bottom above the level of the head. I've still got the chin, and this is because if we smack the baby in the middle of the back and we don't have that chin, you could end up with that movement here in the neck, which is not cool. So tilt, and then we take the front of our hand here, all right, nice stiff hand, and we place it in the middle of the back and we deliver one of those back blows. I check them out quickly. 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? If the object has not been dislodged and this baby is still showing signs of choking, turn the baby over, gently place them on your lap, okay? 2 fingers in the middle of the chest. I'm just going to come a little bit closer so you can see this. Don't carry the baby like that though, it's not good. 2 fingers in the middle of the chest, and you basically push downwards into the chest, okay? 2, 3, 4, 5. If it hasn't come out, that's the back blows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll notice these are called back blows, not back slaps, not back taps. They have to be hard enough to use force to basically move this object up the throat, and hopefully the gag reflex will come in and they will bring it up, often with some bile or with some vomit, all right? And at this stage, if the object has come out, then you have done one of these, all right, which we call chest thrusts in babies under 1 or up to 1 year old, then you need to get this baby seen by a medical professional. Now, in the current climate, this baby is breathing and they're crying and everything is okay, that should be a conversation that you have with NHS Direct. Call them and tell them that you've had to deal with a baby choking, you've done the back blows, and you've also done chest thrusts, and they will give you information as to what comes next. And the reason being is because in the current climate at the moment, while we're dealing with this COVID crisis, with children and babies, they will send out people if you call an ambulance. So don't delay, but just be aware, if you haven't managed to call for an ambulance at this point and the baby is breathing and is okay, call for advice. All right, call for advice and let them know what it is that's happened, and keep an eye out for any signs and symptoms that the baby is really unwell. It is important that you get advice because we've just pushed down on that chest. So call them. If you haven't already called an ambulance, call NHS Direct, tell them what's happened, and they will send out a rapid response unit just to check the baby over or give you any further advice going forward. If you've called for an ambulance prior to this coming out, let's say there's somebody in the house and they've called an ambulance for you, then wait for the ambulance to arrive and they will come over and give the baby a bit of a check over, all right, just to make sure that everything is okay. So don't delay in getting help if you've ever had to do a chest thrust. It's really important, okay? So that's how we deliver the choking protocol on a baby up to 1 year, all right? So again, just to recap, underneath the chin, go to the side, hand on the side, and if you notice, my hand is on the side of the baby, not there, only because I have seen this done a few times, and you end up with this kind of motion that goes forward and it makes me feel a bit icky. So just be aware that you can go sideways and it does the same job, all right? So back blows, and then chest thrusts. All right? Excellent. And that is for a baby up to 1 year. Then we look at our cavity, who is above a year. Okay, and this is above a year, up to our children's ages. Sebastian's 12. I'll probably do the adult protocol for him, as well as Hermione, she's 10. So again, it just depends upon the size of the child. But let's assume that this is a toddler, maybe 4, 5, okay, maybe 3, 4, 5 upwards. Then what we need to do for this is exactly the same, but we move down from the chest thrust to perform abdominal thrusts. And instead of putting the baby child underneath my arm, then we would place them over my lap. Okay, so I'm just going to show you what that looks like. So child is choking, place them over your lap. Okay, this time, instead of just this part of my hand, I'm using this part of my hand in the middle of the back and a little bit